Hi, Felix and Jamie. We see that you're on the phone and we're waiting to get started here.
Thank you, Barbara.
Hi there, it's Christopher. Anybody there?
Chris, can you hear us? Me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. There's just 3 of us in the room and 3 people online. We're going to go ahead and get started here. I now call to order this work session of the Anchorage Assembly regarding AO 2022-82, amending AMC 2.30, Rules of Procedure for Assembly. It is Friday, September 16, 2022. We are noticed from 12:20 to 12:50 p.m. today. It is 12:23, and we will start with Assembly member introductions, starting in the room.
Pete Peterson. Forrest Dunbar.
Suzanne LaFrance, and on the phone we have Ms. Allard,
Jamie Allard.
Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Rivera.
Felix Rivera.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has joined the phone? Okay, and we are also joined at the table by Ms. Jones, who is going to walk us through the ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I emailed Crosswalk, and as you know, I like crosswalks because I think they really simplify the ordinance, and you should have that in your email, and we pass them out in person.
And I just want to pause to note that for any members of the public who are listening in, the documents are available online if you go to muni.org/worksessions. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
So this is a fairly simple change, this proposed ordinance. The main purpose of the ordinance is to correct or to codify a situation where the assembly uses what are called subsidiary motions as a main motion. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the ordinance. Even so, we had a couple of other corrections that we thought we should make at the time. And the first one is on page 2 of the ordinance. It's AMC 2.30.035A12. And as you can see in that section, we're just clarifying agenda category 12 and that there are some administrative items that may be in this category, but they're not public hearing items. So your public hearing items are going to be in 13, 14, and 15. And then unfinished items would be in 11 and 12. And that's just clarifying that. The next item is it's on the bottom of page 3. And then, whoops, I could be wrong about that. It's actually on page 4 and 5. And on page 4 and 5, we're kind of shifting gears here and talking about appearance requests and audience participation. And so in the crosswalk, I've tried to clarify for you, we're talking about groups that speak during an appearance request, or any speaker speaking in initial or final audience participation. And the changes are that it allows the chair, at the chair's discretion, to grant a person speaking for a group to speak no more than 5 minutes. So before, the chair had pretty much open discretion on that. And this just makes it a little bit clearer that it's 5 minutes. But this is on an appearance request, okay? That's in section B on page 4. On page 5, we're talking about let's see. On 5, we're talking about final audience participation. And in that section, it's saying that the time may not be extended. And the reason that we were asked to draft this way is because if you extend one person's time in audience participation, you're taking away someone else's time. So in audience participation, there's no discretion for the chair to extend. And then there was a chart that had been floating around that we were asked to...
Barbara,
Yes.
I apologize. Madam Chair, I apologize. Just for clarification, when you say no extension, is that final or initial? I apologize.
Thank you, Ms. Allard.
Ms.
Is that
Allard,
final audience participation?
through the chair, section G has 2 tiny changes in it. One concerns final audience participation, that it will be held, not scheduled. It'll be held if there's time available. That only deals with final audience participation. But the section deals with both initial and final, and I'm sorry I didn't clarify that before.
You probably did. I probably just didn't hear it.
No,
Okay.
I didn't,
Thank you.
Ms.
I appreciate
Allard.
it, Barbara.
My apologies.
Oh, okay.
The
you.
code, the new code change says this time may not be extended. Okay, so again, that's a fairness issue because, of course, if you extend one person's time, you're taking away from a different person. Since the assembly has limited time for initial and final audience participation. So now we're back to section H on page 5. And you can see in the crosswalk, what we're saying is this chart that had been circulating and someone asked us to include it. It's an easy reference to summarize the time allowed for individuals and groups. And we do really hope that clarifies things. This section, again, is audience participation and appearance requests. But if you note, the third box there concerns public hearings. And we're going to get to public hearings next, but we thought it would be helpful to have that in the chart here as well. So if we move to the next section, which is the conduct of the public hearing, it's on page 6. And there, this section 2 has 3 new clauses. First, we're back again to the same provision that at the chair's discretion, the time for an individual testifying as a group may be extended, but no more than 5 minutes. So that's a change to restrict the chair's discretion. The second change in this section clarifies that when an individual representative is granted 5 minutes, the individual does not get an additional 3 minutes to speak in their individual capacity. And I've noted in the crosswalk that this doesn't have a parallel section in initial or audience participation because the code doesn't allow extensions in initial or final audience participation, and an individual can't speak on their own appearance request. So that concept is to some degree understood in those other sections. The third change in this section on the conduct of the public hearing just refers back to the chart that we talked about, because the chart specifies that individuals can testify for 3 minutes. The chair can extend to 5 for an individual representing a group. Community council representatives, the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and the native village of Eklutna can get 5 minutes, but also that a person testifying for a group does not also get an additional 3 minutes. Okay, so that pretty much covers part 1 of the changes in this ordinance. The second part of this ordinance begins on page 6 and goes over to page 7. And this is the section that motivated me to initiate this, is that I realized that the assembly members use motions that are considered incidental main motions or supplemental motion or subsidiary motions. We use them as main motions. And I just wanted to make sure that your rules of procedure allow that. And I've listed several examples in the AM. So when a member pulls an item from the consent agenda and says, I move to postpone this item indefinitely at the request of the administration, or a member says, they pull something from the consent agenda and say, I move to postpone this to the next meeting. Or we have an audit report that someone says, I want to pull this and move this to refer to the audit committee. And we've had that recently. I think you have a ordinance that's coming back to you that was referred to the CEDC committee. So the motion to refer, the motion to postpone the item indefinitely, or a motion to postpone to a time certain are all considered subsidiary motions in Robert's rules. And technically, they are out of order because you don't have a main motion pending. But having a main motion pending is really an unnecessary series of steps, and it's inconsistent with the Assembly's practice. So all this ordinance does, as you can see, it just authorizes the Assembly to do this. And it says that certain motions, this is in B on page 6, certain motions classified by Robert's rules as subsidiary shall be considered incidental main motions when there is no main motion pending, and then it lists those motions that I just talked about. The section also details them a little bit further. In the new paragraph 6, it talks about a motion to refer. And this is interesting because your motion to refer the ordinance regarding CEDC, there was no end date for that. It was referred to CEDC, but you never told CEDC when to have it back to you. And so this code change was recommended by Assembly Council, and it says that if there is no referral back date, it will be brought back at the next Assembly meeting. So that's just a minor change. It probably keeps your agendas a little bit cleaner. And those are all the changes. We think the ordinance is pretty straightforward. That's why we only asked for 30 minutes for this work session, but we're happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, and thank you very much for putting together the crosswalk too, showing the changes. Do members have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Go
do I
ahead,
need to
Ms.
go?
Allard.
I'll get in queue. Oh, okay. Thank you. I apologize. Barbara, so I have a question. You said that if we extend, it could interfere on someone else's time. And I'm aware of one of the amendments coming forward by Mr. Schultz. So say like the meeting goes to the initial part where we all gather and we do roll call and Pledge of Allegiance and mayor and committee reports, and say it goes to 5:45. Are you saying that this code would prevent us from saying from 5:45? Okay, sorry, I have dogs. From 5:45 until like 6:30, that we wouldn't be able to extend that, or?
Not at all, Miss Allard, through the chair. What I am saying is that if the meeting, if you finished everything at 5:45 and initial audience participation goes until 6, that's 15 minutes divided by 3 minutes is 5 speakers. So the issue is, if the chair was allowed to extend any of those speakers in initial audience participation, it would reduce the time for one of those other speakers. That's why the chair can't extend. The motion that you're speaking about is a totally separate motion. It's a motion to suspend the rules to extend audience participation until 6:15. That is absolutely authorized.
And then if there is an amendment that is presented, sorry, Madam Chair, may I follow up with a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Follow-up question. Thank you. So if we did put something in that says, okay, we're done, but we only have 15 minutes till 6 o'clock, we could possibly put an amendment into 2022-82 that states that we will just do a full 45 minutes, but that's not violating anybody's time. We could possibly bring that forth, and it wouldn't counter what you just said, correct?
Through the chair, Ms. Allard, I'm not positive, but I'm not sure I understand it until I see it, but I don't see that that's related to this. I think it's
I appreciate it.
what you're talking about is more similar to a motion to extend.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Thank you, Ms. Jones. And Ms. Jones, thank you for your work on this. I very much appreciate any further clarification that we do through code so we can reduce the number of times where we have to stop and discuss how to proceed. So making this clear, I think, is really helpful. Thank you. Do members have any other questions or comments? I do want to note that we were joined a few minutes ago by Mr. Voland. Okay, well, seeing no other members in the queue, Before we adjourn, I want to note that we have another work session regarding the Anchorage Equal Rights Commission 2021 annual report that starts at 1 p.m. And then the third work session of the day that was initially scheduled from 2:10 to 3:10 p.m. today on AO 2022-77 has been canceled and will be rescheduled. So with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.